Right, hello everyone. This is Sunday evening. I'm coming talking to you here now. Paul Carroll here, ready to look back on what was a crazy weekend, the first weekend of the County Hurling Championships here in Tipperary. 23 games across the top three divisions. We'll run down through my predictions. It didn't go well, but it was such an unpredictable first weekend. I have a, if you're watching this again, it's going to be on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, thanks for listening, but we do have a video version on YouTube as well. You'll see I have the tabs open. I have my round one review, just kind of some notes I was taking on some of the games as they were happening. So I'll be going down through game by game, giving my thoughts and just kind of running through what happened in every game. And we'll be looking back on my predictions. I'll just get to it. 23 games, I only predicted 9 right. But in fairness, it was such an unpredictable opening weekend. If you look at both grades, the county senior champions Killadangan, they didn't win their opening game. The 8 to 11 favourites for the Seamus O'Reen Upper Church Drumban, they were beaten in their first game. The second favourites in the Premier Intermediate Cashel Kincormac's, they were beaten as well. So there was upsets all over the place. Kind of performances we didn't see coming, and lots of things like that. So we'll run down through everything over the course of this podcast. Probably going to be, I don't know, maybe about 40 minutes or so. We do this every week. If this is the first one you're tuning into, back on, I believe it was Wednesday maybe, I done a podcast looking ahead to the county championship opening round, and then every Sunday evening I'll be looking back on the games that just happened. So I was going to record this a little bit earlier, but I had the Third of Sarsfield's Mullinahone match on, and while I was doing up some of my notes. So it's going to probably be around this time every Sunday. It's like I'm recording now, it's 20 past 9, so this probably won't go out until maybe 10:30 or so. I eventually will go back to the Monday podcasts once the NFL comes back, so another kind of 6 weeks time. We'll stay with the Sunday until then, but yeah, what an opening weekend of games it was in Tipperary. Like, especially Saturday. Saturday we'd 5 games in the intermediate, and we had, or sorry, in the senior hurling championship, and 30 goals. So we'll run down through all my predictions and how they went and all the games. So I'm trying to think of the format. Do we just go game by game? We'll go game by game. We'll start with the senior. So I have some notes. I kind of could be doing this off the top of my head, but there's so many games and so much happened that I kind of have to go off the notes. So I'll just make that a little bit bigger for the people watching the stream. I just have my document open with some of the notes. So yeah, we'll start with Lura versus Lockmore Castline. This one Friday night. This was in Group 3 of the Senior Championship. So Lockmore Castline 421, Lura 117 was the final score there. Tommy Maher done really well for a couple of the goals there for Lockmore. They were kind of always on top, but Aidan McGrath had some big saves to make. It wasn't, I know the scoreline suggests, what's that, 421, 13-point victory for Lockmore, but Aidan McGrath made two big saves. And while it was a 7-point game, he made a huge save from Owen McIntyre in the 51st minute. So if that goes in, it's back to a 4-point game, but he saved it. And a minute later, Kieran McGrath went down the other end and finished a good pass off from Lee McGrath. Top corner job from Kieran McGrath. So that kind of ended the game. That pushed him back out to 7, and they pushed on from there. No Bonner Maher for Lura. There was apparently a bit of confusion there. He obviously got sent off in the game against, was it Curra Finn in the Munster Championship last year, Munster Intermediate Championship. I believe Lura didn't play him in the North Championship because they thought that would count. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's what I was hearing during the week there, or over the weekend, that Lura thought that him not playing in the North Championship would count for the suspension, but he didn't play and didn't play in the North Championship, and that didn't count. The Munster Council weren't satisfied that it was the same competition, so he didn't play against Lockmore. Obviously, a huge loss, but big. It was a big step up for Lockmore, like back up to the senior grade, going up against, or sorry, for Lura, back up to the senior grade, going in against the Lockmore Castellini team who've been absolutely flying it. So they keep up their good form. We'll continue. That was in Group 3 of the Senior Championship. We'll stay with Group 3. We'll see how Group 3 is looking here. I will open up what Group 3 looks like on the Tip GA website. So the other game in Group 3 was the game I was commentating on today in the Senior Championship. This is in the RAG. Nina Rogue, 19 points. Holy Cross Ballycahill, 24 points. So a 5-point win for Holy Cross in the RAG. I suppose the key points of this game Robbie Ryan was very good for Holy Cross. Still, what is he, 18, 19, starting corner forward, scored, I believe, 4 points. I'll open up my notebooks. I have my trusty, awful blue notepad here that I was keeping notes on with my the team sheets from that game today as I was doing it. So Robbie Ryan had 4 points from play. Dara Woods had 5 points. He was on the freeze. I'd say maybe 2 or 3 points from play. Elsewhere, Brian O'Mara in the first half for Holy Cross. He scored 3 points, all long range scores from him. He was very impressive. But it was a close game throughout. Nina were right there. Just they're kind of overly reliant on Jake Morris, I thought, that kind of game plan, and he was brilliant. He scored 6 points from play. I think he'd maybe 4 or 5 in the first half. He was marking, or Joe Caesar was marking him, following him everywhere, no matter where Jake went. Jake was kind of out around the half forward line in the first half, and he was getting on a lot of ball. That suited him better, whereas the second half he went in full forward, and Nina just couldn't get solid ball into him. They were playing balls kind of out to the sideline where he'd have to sprint out kind of 45 yards with a lad up on his back trying to win the ball. And I don't know, it was, even if he won the ball out there, it just wasn't a great strategy, I suppose, really. And then the last few minutes they kind of pushed Conor Hennessy forward into the full forward line, and I thought maybe they should have done that earlier. I felt like they needed a target man at some stage, and I know they were trying to place nice ball in front of Jake, but I felt if they just had a kind of like a big man on the edge of the square kind of thing, putting ball down, and you'd have Jake getting onto breaks and things like that way, because I don't know, the Holy Cross had Brian O'Mara in front of him as well, so anytime he was running out to those balls in the second half, he was just cramped in there. So he was brilliant on the ball, Jake Morris, and Mikey Heffernan got 8 points as well, worth mentioning him. A big loss though for Nina was Sam O'Farrell, of course with the Tip under-20s this year, and he was the minor captain back in 2022 when Tip bet Offaly. He missed out through injury. He was replaced by Mark O'Farrell. Philip Hickey missed out as well. So one or two injuries there for Nina, so they didn't have them. Conor McCarthy did return, so that's good news for Nina and for Tipperary supporters. Conor McCarthy done a knee injury last year, was in with the Tip panel, kind of missed all the last 12 months or so. Came back junior during the week there, back on Wednesday night, I think, scored a goal against Killadangan, but he came on in the last few minutes. So good to see Conor McCarthy back, and we'll hope that he has a good long spell. Barry Heffernan had a fine game in the backs for Nina, but it was just one of those games. It was 2-3 points in it, 4 points in it. Nina Rose kind of needed to get a score to keep up with Holy Cross, but at the end of it, it was 18 points to 21, and the ball broke off Conor Hennessy, popped up a hand pass to Jake Morris, and he's inside the 14, running at an angle, and you're just thinking this is definitely a goal. He hits it low, doesn't connect with it well, and it was Ewan Burke who made the save, and that was a big moment. If that went in, it would have been a draw game. Nina would have had all the momentum and could have pushed on to win, but Ewan Burke is a really, really good goalkeeper, and he scored 2 points. One was like the last puck of the game, a free in his own 45, but the other free he got was on the edge of his own D down in the rag. Just absolute monstrous strike. Sometimes he's a tall fella, strong fella, but sometimes taller players don't put their whole body into a strike. They don't need to nearly, but he put all his body into the strike, and it went over the bar. It was maybe against the wind in the rag as well. It was a huge strike from Ewan Burke. Elsewhere for Holy Cross, James Doyle was really good. He scored 3 points. Ty Gould in around the middle of the field. Again, these are all very young players who would have been on the under-19 county final winning team for Holy Cross last year. He was really good. Ty Gould in around the middle of the field, got on an awful lot of ball, got a big score in the second half as well. Kyle Barrett popped up for 2 scores, Ben Hennessy as well. Kyle Barrett actually got a really long distance score to push it out to a 4-point lead late on. That was a huge score at the time because Nina were pushing for a goal, and he also made a big goal line block, just a load of bodies in around the square, and it dropped to a Nina man. He got it in his hand and he leathered it, and Kyle Barrett on the goal line, it just hit his body. So big win for Holy Cross, because this is the group, as you can see on the screen if you're listening, with Laura and Lockmore Castellini. So Nina will play Laura next. They met in the North Championship, and Nina won that well, but Laura should have a stronger team for that game. And then in 2 weeks' time, Holy Cross against Lockmore Castleiney. So that's going to be a massive game in terms of trying to get through. But that Nina Laura game as well will be big as well. So that's how Group 3 is finishing up. We may as well do it in order. So we'll go back to Group 1. So Group 1 this weekend. This was Killer One McDonough's against Drum and Inch, and Bursley against Toomey Vara. So these were two upsets, you'd have to say, in terms of the way the bookmakers had it. Killer One McDonough's 420 to Drum and Inch's 125. This was in Templederry on Saturday evening. And yeah, so much to talk about. I'll pull up my notes again for this game. There was 3 goals in the first half for Killer One McDonough's, and we'll just highlight that there. 420 to 125. So it started off hot. Jerry Cahill with a good goal in the 4th minute, coming in from the side in kind of the far end in Templederry, finished it low. Shamie Callan then answered back a few minutes later, kind of got the ball through a nice dummy, and then a low finish past Paddy Williams. But it was Thomas Cleary and Keane O'Kelly. So I suppose to talk about this game as a whole, Thomas Cleary and Keane O'Kelly, just long balls down on top of those two lads. They were causing Drum havoc, like two big lads. Keane O'Kelly, I think he was travelling last year, so when he got back, he maybe wasn't at full fitness, but now he looks really fit, really strong on the ball, and he had an unbelievable game, did Keane O'Kelly. So if you're talking about Liam Cahill rankings, or players that might be getting a call into Liam Cahill from this county championship, Keane O'Kelly is definitely putting his hand up. Yeah, but the goals and the danger for Killer One, or for Drum and Inch, were from Killer One hitting long balls in. And as I said, Thomas Cleary got on the end of a long ball. It was down on top of Keane Darcy, broke off him. Thomas Cleary was there. He buried it. That was in the 16th minute. And 2 minutes later, Keane Darcy, another long ball in around the square. And in fairness, if you're a Drum and Inch supporter, their full back line just didn't really deal with it that well. It was there around their 21-yard line and trying to get it off the ground, and eventually one of them was trying to get it off the ground on the 21-yard line, or maybe around the 14, and he failed to rise it maybe twice, and Keane Darcy just came in and let fly, and that was into the back of the net. So it was 3-9 to 112 at half time. And then in the second half, 20 seconds into the second half, 3-9 to 112, so a 3-point game. Killer One were in the lead at half time, and I'm sure Drum were saying, right, let's push on now in this first 10 minutes of the second half. But 20 seconds later, after the ball was thrown in the second half, Keane O'Kelly had buried it into the back of the net. So that kind of put Killer One by 6 points and gave them a nice cushion, and they would go on to win that game, 420 to 125. So that's a 4-point win for Killer One for a finish. So great performances all over the field. Craig and Aaron Morgan at the back, Jerry Cahill, Niall O'Mara, Willie Cleary. He's one of the most accurate strikers of the ball in this championship. From his frees, from play, his free taking technique is just so smooth, and it's kind of like nothing can go wrong when he's hitting the ball. It's just a smooth stroke in action. Looks very natural for him. So he was really good, really important. And this is a Killer One team that were county champions 2 years ago. They were in the relegation semi-final last year. But when they play like that, when they have all those players on the field, it kind of reminds everyone that, God, this is the county champions from 2 years ago. So brilliant performance from Killer One. That's huge for them. If we look at the other game in the group, was Bursley and Toomey Vara, and that was another upset. Bursley were beaten in the North Championship. They got rid of their hurling coach, as far as I know, and you have Toomey Vara, who were beat Nina in the North Championship. Were in the semi-final last year, so it kind of was set up for a close game, but you'd be fancying Toomey Vara. But the way this game played out was just a 10-minute blitz from Bursley in the first 10 minutes of the game. It was 1-7 to a point to Bursley after 10 minutes. So this was on Saturday evening in Dalla. At the same time, the game was on between Killer One and Drum and Inch in Templederry. This game was in Dalla, of course, the same group. 1-7 to a point after 10 minutes, and that's not the only game of the weekend that was kind of felt like it was over early. But this game, in fairness to Toomey Vara, wasn't over. Toom obviously maybe just a little bit flat coming off that North final defeat to Killadangan a couple of weeks ago, but I think it was Liam Ryan trying to get the ball off the ground on his own 45. Could have been fouled. He was definitely pushed to the ground as he was over the ball, but Eddie Ryan picked up on it on the Toom 45, soloed in to the 21-yard line and gave a hand pass across to James Devaney, who just volleyed it into the back of the net. So that was 1-7 to a point after 10 minutes. And in fairness to Toom, they were down by 9 points at halftime, 113 to 7, and they got it back to a point down in injury time. But Eddie Ryan went on to get another score to push it back out. So it finished up Bursley 117, Toomevara 18 points. So 2-point win for Bursley, massive win for them. Other kind of incidents in that match. Jake Ryan, the cornerback for Toomevara, he went off what looked to be some sort of maybe ankle injury, some sort of leg injury anyway. It was kind of looking bad for him there as he was hobbling off. So that's one to look out for Toomevara. And it's a funny championship, like, you know, Toom would have been coming in off of last year, getting to a semi-final, getting to the North Final this year, lots of momentum, they're building, they've young players coming through. But now this opening round loss, they're going to be playing Drummond next, who suffered an opening round loss. That is going to be a huge game in 2 weeks' time. Toomevara against Drummond and also Bursley against Killer One. Like, both of those teams will be looking at that second game thinking, this is our chance to book a place nearly in a quarter final. So that's going to be a massive games in that group. That group is a really interesting one in Group 1. But as I mentioned, Jake Ryan, the injury there for Toomevara is a worry. Also for Killer One, Conor Cleary looked to be in a bad way when he went down. Could be a knee injury. Hopefully it's not. Wish him all the best. It didn't look good though, just the way he went down, and just I can tell from someone who's had that injury myself in terms of a knee injury, the way he was kind of rolling around on the ground, he looked to be in a lot of pain. So hopefully it's not as serious as it looks there for Conor Cleary. But that's how Group 1 finished up after weekend 1, round 1. So that group, like, you couldn't call it. You know, if you were to say to someone that, you know, as it stands now, it's Killer One in first place, Bursley second, Toom third, and Drum fourth. Like, if you were to say that was flipped around and Drum were first, Toom were second, you know, you wouldn't be surprised at all. But that's the way it plays out. It's such an interesting championship, so competitive and so hard to predict. So we'll move on now to Group 2. This was Moycarkey Burris 325 to Roscra's 412. And of course, just there this evening in the last couple of hours, Thurles Sarsfields beat Mullinahone. I have the final score written down there, do I? No, I'll get it up here. So the final score in that one was Thurles Sarsfields 29 points, Mullinahone 119. That was on Sunday evening here in Cashel. Well, not here in Cashel, Sunday evening in Cashel. So we'll go back to the other game in that group, Moycarkey Burris against Roscrea. 325 for Moycarkey Burris, 412 for Roscrea, but I don't think that scoreline tells the story of this game at all. It was over after 15 minutes. 13 minutes into the game, the score was Moycarkey Burris 3-9, Roscrea 2 points. So didn't see this coming at all. Of course, Moycarkey Burris were on good form. You know, had that good win in the mid semi-final. Was it against Holy Cross? And no, sorry, it was against, God, it's gone off the top of my head. Who did Moycarkey Burris beat in the mid semi-final? It was their first game. Was it JK Brackens? I think it was, yeah. JK Brackens bet Holy Cross, and then, yeah, Moycarkey Burris bet JK Brackens. So, you know, they had got to the mid-final. They'd done well. But, you know, Roscrea put up a really good fight against Toomevara, only lost by a point for a finish. Roscrea got to the knockout stages last year. They drew with Moycarkey Burris last year, so I actually predicted this to be a draw, and when I saw that it was 3-9 to 2 points after 13 minutes, I was like, whoa, that's not going to be a draw. So the early goals came from Kyle Shelley, 2 quick ones. I believe they were both ground strikes. The second one he got, which was the third goal Moycarkey got, was definitely a ground strike, and Max Hackett broke through for the second goal after 12 minutes. Just a lovely low finish past Daryl Ryan, nothing he could do on the goals. But Kieran Cummins, I just have his name written down. He surged forward and popped the ball off to Max Hackett, who cut inside, maybe on the 14-yard line, maybe on the 21, just drilled it low, bounced off the hard ground inside in Templemore and into the back of the net. And yeah, as I've said already, that game was pretty much over. Like, Roscrea it was kind of always nearly 15 points between the two teams. Roscrea did get a couple of late goals there. Evan Fitzpatrick, Alan Tynan got late ones. I'm sure Reece Shelley won't be happy with some of the defending for those goals, but they won't mind. And Eddie Brennan and co there inside. And Mike Carricky-Burris, 325. What's that? 34 points to 24. So a 10-point win for Mike Carricky-Burris, and that's with conceding a few nothing goals towards the end of the game. So I believe Roscrea were missing a few. I just kind of flicked through this game on Clubber. I didn't watch it fully. It was kind of hard. That game, the Bursley Toom game and the Drumkiller 1 game were all on at the same time. So I was trying to flick through all of them. You end up nearly seeing nothing because you're flicking through so much. But huge win for Mike Carricky-Burris, especially in the context of this group, because as I said on the preview, this group, you kind of have Thurles up there, and then it's Mike Carricky, Roscrea and Mullinahone, and any of those three teams would fancy to go through alongside Thurles Sarsfields, you'd have to say. So yeah, Kieran Cummins, as I mentioned, played really well. Max Hackett had a great game, but and I didn't see Kieran Morris out there, and it was Kyle Shelley hitting the frees. So Kieran Morris, obviously a huge player for Mike Carricky, so to not have him as well, like they have him to come back. So massive win there for Mike Carricky. The other game in Group 2 then, that was just a couple of hours ago. That was Thurles Sarsfields 29 points, Mullinahone 119. Connor Stakelum started the show here. He had 7 points in the first half. I suppose a injury worry for Mullinahone is Enda Keane. He went off in the first half, was replaced with Kevin Bulger, who got a goal in the second half, but it was kind of, it always felt like Thurles Sarsfields were just that bit better. It started out pretty even. It was maybe 4 or 5 points apiece there for a while, but then Thurles pushed out maybe 11 points to 5 ahead, and they were 18 points to 11 up at half time. And then they kind of continued that. Mullinahone did get that late goal with 10 minutes to go, and then they had another chance where they hit the post, and that would have brought it back, I think, to a 4-point game at the time, but Thurles Sarsfields pushed on again. So Mullinahone will take plenty from how they performed in the second half, because that game could have really gotten away from them, but on another day that goal goes back in. I think was it Conor O'Brien who took the shot, hit the post, and they're missing Mikey O'Shea, and they're also missing Conor Whelan at the minute. As far as I know, I don't think I saw Conor Whelan playing there again. I was just glancing at that game as I was doing my research just kind of putting my notes together for this podcast. But I think Mikey O'Shea, I think the two of them are in America, and they are to be back later on. But that was a expected win for Thurles Sarsfields, you'd have to say, in Group 2. So that's how Group 2 is looking after those first few games. Well, obviously not. It's not updated here in the Tip website at the minute. So the final group then we have is Group 4. We started with Group 3 for some reason. So JK Brackens. I predicted Templederry to win this game. It wasn't like a confident Templederry definitely going to win kind of thing. It was more kind of I see this as an even enough game, I'll give the nod to Templederry. Absolutely didn't go that way at all. It was a 15-point win for JK Bracken. 626 to 320 was the full-time score. Both these games, doubleheader in Bursley. If you're in Bursley on Saturday, you were treated to 17 goals in the two games, which is unbelievable. Clouty, Rossmore and Killadangan. This is one of the big games of the weekend. We might actually start with that one in Group 3. Killadangan, county champions, North champions as well, coming into this game. Clonalty hadn't played a competitive game since May the 10th, and that was only a league game, so it was very much a case of what are we going to see from Clonalty. We all know they're a really good team, loads of good players, but it was a kind of a case of, are they going to be rusty or anything like that? And the answer is definitely not, because Clonalty, you have to say they threw this game away. They were 8 points up as the clock ticked 60 minutes, and they somehow didn't win the game. So the story of this game is pretty much the story of the last of injury time. Clonalty 8 points up with 60 minutes gone. Paul Flynn gets a point. Then Billy Seymour gets a 21-yard free, buries it into the back of the net. Then it's back to a 4-point game. David Sweeney pops up for a point, then back to 3 points, and then kind of a last puck of the game, long ball into the edge of the square, bounces around. A shot is saved by Jason O'Dwyer in the Clonalty goals, but Darren Moran is there, a career wing back. He came on as a sub. He was there on the edge of the square to let fly on the rebound and into the back of the net. A huge result for Killadangan, and just it kind of they'll get a huge boost from that. I'd imagine, they'll be very disappointed with being 8 points down in injury time, but to come back, it's just real kind of champions mentality. The other goals for them, Paul Flynn got a goal in the first half, and Brian Malachney with an unreal finish. It was a brilliant run from Conor Byrne, popped a hand pass inside to Brian Malachney, and he's kind of central position, maybe 15, 16 yards out, and just arrowed it low into the bottom corner. Brilliant goal there from Brian Malachney. For Clonoulty, Danny Slattery, Stephen Ferncombe, Robert Doyle and Cathal Burke with the goals, all in the second half, which was interesting enough. 4:20 at piece it finished, like unbelievable game, 8:40 between the two teams, split evenly. But yeah, Michael Ryan Winnie got the clubber man of the match, and he was talking to the clubber commentator. It was Gary Toohey, I think it was, and talking to him after, and he said he's lost games where he hasn't felt as bad coming off the field. Just a matter of the draw. But if you get offered Clonoulty a draw at the start of that, they definitely would have taken it. But to be 8 points up in injury time and to not come away with a win is definitely going to be disappointing. But they did look very strong, solid players all over the field. Even those 4 goal scorers there, Danny Slattery, Stephen Ferncombe, Robert Doyle and Cathal Burke, all really, really top players. And then Eve the Heffernans in the back, and really solid team, Clonoulty. So I don't know how this group is going to play out in terms of who plays who next, because we've had a draw. Usually it's winners against winners and losers against losers in the second round. I've been contemplating taking a sip of this water for the last 5 minutes, so give me a second. Apologise to the Spotify listeners. That probably sounds awful, but has to be done. Keeping the voice hydrated. I was on commentary duty both Saturday and Sunday. I was at the Camogie game on Saturday, and that was a big disappointment. We might talk about that maybe a bit later on, but we'll plough on here. We'll move on from that Clonoulty-Killadangan game, but what a result there. It could have been for Clonoulty, but I say they'll still take that 1 point from that game. Moving on then to the other game in that group, we have JK Bracken's 6-26, Templederry 3-20. Like, as I was saying, I predicted Templederry to win this game. And if you told me, okay, you predict Templederry to win, what if I told you they scored 320? I'd be like, yeah, I'm confident in that pick. Not how it worked out whatsoever. 6-26 for JK Bracken's, absolute monstrous score. And they didn't have Andrew Ormond, which is huge for them. But let's see, I haven't looked back over these notes. It was 2-16 to 10 points at half time. Lyndon Fairbrother and Jamie Ormond with the goals. Mikey Cahill with a goal on the 33rd minute then for JK Bracken's just after half time to kind of compound that. They pushed it up to 15-point lead. Straight after that though, Sean Ryan, brilliant one-handed finish. Was it a ball kind of bouncing up? There's a few one-handed finishes this weekend. But Sean Ryan scored 2-5, I think, from play. I'm not sure did I write that down, but Sean Ryan was unreal for Templederry. The second goal he got was arguably even better. 52nd minute I have written down here. Yeah, Ned Walsh got the 4th goal for JK Bracken's. But on the 52nd minute, long ball to the edge of the 14, and Sean Ryan leaped out of the sky, snapped the ball, and finished it. It was unbelievable, but unfortunately it wasn't going to make a difference. This game was over at half time, 2-16 to 10 points. And it was kind of played out and almost challenge game-esque in terms of the space afforded to some of the players. Brian Stapleton got a goal on 54. Again, Sean Ryan involved with a lovely pass. But yeah, that Sean Ryan goal in the 52nd minute, the big leap. Éanna McBride scored a goal from the puck out. I had these notes written down. I'm struggling to remember exactly how these goals played out because, again, there was 9 of them in this game. But at the end of the day, JK Bracken's with a massive win, 6-26 to 3-20. Shane Keegan, of course, their manager. If you're an off-the-ball listener, he does beyond that a good bit. Cove Ramblers manager last year, heavily involved in kind of leash development squads and things like that. But obviously a massive first round of the championship result for him. And again, no Andrew Ormond in that game, but a brilliant performance from JK Bracken's. They march on. We'll see how that group looks after the first round. So it's JK Bracken's in first place, Clonoulty then in second, and Killadangan in third, but basically joint second, and then Templederry in bottom place. So it's going to be JK Bracken's against Clonoulty or Killadangan, and then Templederry against Clonoulty or Killadangan in the second round. But if we look at it there, like Tipperary probably would have been targeting that game as maybe the quote easiest game in the group. So to be bet so comprehensively there, what were those final score? What, 15-point defeat? Do you know that's going to be a tough one for them to come back from. So we'll see how they go in the second round, but they're going to need to find something there, or they could find themselves in the relegation battle. But as Sean Ryan said to me at the launch, it nearly, you know, any game, they all count the same. You know, I was saying you're probably targeting JK Brackens, and he was like, we saw it last year. They bet Holy Cross kind of on an upset in the last game to avoid relegation. So they'll be hoping maybe for something similar, but they're going to have to do it against Clonalty or Killadangan to stay out of the relegation zone. So that's how the senior championship ended. What are we, 30 minutes into this podcast? That's how the senior championship ended. What have we? We had 36 goals in the 8 games, so some scoring. I don't know if anyone done the Moicarkey Burris or the Aero Gannacarthy predictors. I know I did for the championship, and you know, you're asked about to predict how many goals would be in the whole thing, and I'm going to be way off anyway because there was 36 goals in the first weekend. But if we look at my predictions, as I said, 9 out of 23 across the 3 championships, the senior, premier, intermediate and intermediate. So not good forecasting by myself. When it came to the senior, I predicted Lockmore to win. They won. I predicted, we'll just highlight it here for the viewers. I predicted I predicted Tipperary to beat JK Brackens. Brackens won that. I predicted Killadangan to win. It was a draw. I predicted Tumivara to win. They lost by 2 points. I predicted Drum to win. They lost by 3 or 4 points to Killer 1. I predicted a draw in the Moicarkey Burris Roscrea game. These look awful stupid now, but last Wednesday I was like, yeah, these are good picks. I predicted a draw, and Moicarkey Burris won by 15 odd. Then I predicted Holy Cross to beat. No, I predicted a draw in that game. Holy Cross won against Nina, and then the final game I predicted Thurles Sarsfields to win, and they won. So what do we? From the 8 senior games, we got 2. We got 2 right. So not great shooting there, 25%. So that's how the senior championship ended after round 1. We'll move on to the Premier Intermediate Championship. So let me navigate the TIP website, which isn't always easy. Here is the Premier Intermediate Championship Group 1. So the Group 1 results were, this was Upperchurch Drumban, Carrick Swan on Friday evening. We'll start with this game. So Upperchurch Drumban, as we mentioned on Wednesday's podcast, huge favourites for the championship, 8-11. As I was saying at the time, it's kind of ludicrous because I know they're rightly favourites, but 8-11 to win the whole championship, you know, and there's so many high quality teams in it, and you know, maybe it's the kind of rude awakening they might have needed in terms of their season was going so well, it was all going to plan, maybe winning the County League, Division 1 of the County League, winning the Mid-Premier Intermediate Championship, but that was a big wake-up call now on Friday evening. Down in Littleton, Carrick Swan 117, Upperchurch Drumban 115. From what I can remember off the top of my head, it was Paddy Phelan who got the goal for Upperchurch Drumban. Paddy the Flick Phelan, you could call him, from the 2022 minor final. He popped up the pass that Paddy McCormick finished into the back of the net. But he got a brilliant goal. I think it was Colin Ryan maybe who played a ball across, kind of a speculative ball across the edge of the goals out from the sideline, and played it across the edge of the 14. And Paddy Phelan, he's not a big man, but he rose and snapped the ball and turned and finished it low. That was a big goal for them. As the game is coming back to me now, Carrick Swan's goal came from Callum Lanigan. He was really good. They had a shot on goals. It was saved by Kieran Short in the Upperchurch goals, and he just played a poor hand pass out the field. He tried to hand pass it forward out to the 21 to one of his teammates, but it was at his teammates' ankles, and Carrick Swans just came in and took it. And I'll see, do I have the notes down, but it eventually came to Callum Lanigan, and he finished strong. So Callum Lanigan goal, 38 minute goalie saved shot, then poor hand pass turned over. So Upperchurch led by 2 at the break, but this Carrick Swan team are really good. Gavin O'Halloran was unbelievable. Dean Waters was wearing number 18. He got a few scores late on and was getting on a lot of ball, but Gavin O'Halloran was just unreal, just a real classy player to look. That's the word that always comes to mind. As I mentioned on last week's podcast, I saw him in Kilcolman, maybe in the league maybe 2 months ago, and you know, I've seen him before, like, you know, he was with Tip at the start of the year, but he's just so classy on the ball, and he got there was 1 point in it, and he got a sideline. Carrick Swan got a sideline ball down in the far corner. It was almost kind of last puck of the game territory, but he was on maybe the 14, 21 yard line, and he just slotted it over the bar. His sideline taking is unbelievable. So that's a huge win for Carrick Swan. And I'm sure Carrick Swan maybe heard the talk of, a lot of people saying, after they won the South Championship, that, oh, Carrick are always good in the division, they're always good in the South, but when they go into the county championship, they're not the same team. Well, that is a huge win for them over the favourites, Upperchurch Strumban. So as I was saying, it could be a good thing for Upperchurch in terms of it's a wake-up call, and it's come at the very start of the championship, rather than if they were to float through their group, they might, sleepwalk into a quarter-final and then get caught. So I think maybe they're going to be a lot more wary. They're going to be going in against Silvermines in the next day. So if we go back, the other game in that group was on Saturday. Silvermines 117, Ballina 216, so 2-point win there for Ballina. If I pull up my notes there of this game, Stephen O'Brien goal after 9 minutes. It was 1-8-7 at half time, but Stephen did go off injured in the second half. Still not sure about how serious it was. He was talking to Clubber after, and he was mentioning that it didn't feel too bad, but he'd kind of see. But I suppose half time 1-8-7 points. Ballina in the lead, but it was a David Kelly goal 60 seconds into the second half, kind of got onto a breaking ball, I think. It was actually a lovely move, and then a hand pass played out to him, and he's just so quick, David Kelly, coming in from the side, and he buried it past Conor Murphy inside the Silvermines goal, and that was a huge score. That was 2-8 then to 7 points, and there were 7 points in the lead. Silvermines did kind of claw it back. It was only a 2-point game for a finish. Conor McKelvey scored a goal 8 minutes into the second half. It was a diagonal ball kind of running out in front of him. He was in the full forward position, let's say, running towards the goals, and the ball was coming over in front of him, and he just pulled on it first time into the back of the net. Really good finish, and that made it a 4-point game. But Owen Power was huge for Ballina. 5 points from play. Tip footballer this year. You can tell he's in good nick, but really solid performance from him. 5 points from play. Michael Breen was really, really good for Ballina as well. Didn't quite catch what Jason Ford scored for a finish for the Silvermines, but that's a huge win for Ballina, because as we were mentioning last week, I would have predicted Carrick Swan and Upperchurch Strumban to go through from this group, so that meant this game was a huge one. So it really puts the Silvermines now on the back foot. They're going to have to go out and beat Upperchurch Strumban or Carrick Swan to avoid relegation. So they're going to be underdogs for those games, but they won't mind that underdogs tag whatsoever. But Upperchurch Strumban now are going to be playing Silvermines next, and then Ballina are going to be playing Carrick Swan. So that's going to be a massive game for both of those teams, because Ballina now can feel that they've got momentum from that win, because as I was mentioning, this Ballina team, they've loads of good players on the field. You're talking about Jack Collins, the under-20 player from Tipperary, or from Ballina, under-20 for Tipperary this year. And then you have David Kelly, Stephen O'Brien, Michael Breen, Owen Power putting on a great display of scoring there as well. So that's a huge win for Ballina. They'll take loads of momentum from that, and they're going to need as good as not, if better performance in 2 weeks' time against Carrick Swan. So that's how Group 1 looks in the Premier Intermediate Championship. Ballina and Carrick Swan occupy the top 2 places. Ballina, they actually have both same score difference. Ballina have just scored a little bit more, so they're ahead. And then Silvermines in 3rd, and Upperchurch Strumban in 4th place. That's not where they would have expected themselves to be after that opening round. So 2 weeks' time, Upperchurch against Silvermines, Ballina against Carrick Swan. So we'll go into Group 2 of the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship. Another upset, I suppose. Only one game in this group. Moyne Temple 2 against Éire Óg Carthy is not happening until next Saturday. Probably won't have a podcast next week because it's just round 1 of the football. And I wouldn't have as much knowledge of the football. I won't be getting to as many of the games because they're all down around South Tip. But we'll maybe pick the football up as we get to the knockout stages. But so Moyne Temple 2 and Éire Óg Carthy are playing next Saturday, and I don't think I'm going to do a podcast just to preview that game. But Gartnahoe Glengool, massive win over Cashel Kincormacs in the Rag on Saturday. 22 points for Cashel, 2-17 to Gartnahoe. But the big moment in this game, it ebbed and flowed. Like Cashel, I'll pull up who was winning at half time. I think it might have been Cashel by 2 points maybe at half time. If I pull up my notes, Yeah, so it was 1-9 to 11 points at halftime. So it was Garton Who up by a point at halftime. Oisin Cleary goal in the 24th minute. Yeah, Owen Connolly, whose name I've spelled poorly there. The O and I are beside each other on a keyboard, so I've Eighan. But anyway, Owen Connolly, who's been so solid all year for Cashel, just got caught maybe in a bit of two minds. He won the ball, he kind of turned back to maybe hand pass it back to the goalkeeper, Jonathan Walsh, but instead he hand passed it infield on his own 21, and it was read by Ronan T, and he came in, took the ball, hand passed it off to Oisin Cleary, and he kind of like just scooped it into the back of the net. So that was a big goal on the 24th minute, because it was tit for tat up for that, and that pushed Garton Who out by a point. But Cashel, in fairness to him, Oisin O'Donoghue done well, is what I've written here. Oisin O'Donoghue was really good, like for a lad who's on his first year up at the grade. He's such a good promising player for Cashel and for Tipperary. But Cashel, in fairness to him, down by a point at half time. They went up by 4 points with 45 minutes gone. Then Garton Who came back into it. They kind of got it back level, went into a point in the lead, I think, in injury time. But then a short puck out to the fullback, David Nolan, and he goes on this just unbelievable run down the field. Plays a couple of 1-2s down through the middle of the field in the rag, plays a couple of 1-2s, and then pops it off to Cian Hayes. He breaks the tackle and just puts it right in the corner, the top corner of the net. Maybe took a few steps, but he was let play on, and it was some finish from Cian Hayes. But David Nolan, that run was just inspirational. Captain of the team, and it was a real kind of like, captain showing up when needed. Takes the short puck out, does a couple of 1-2s, literally just bull running down the middle of the field, and Cian Hayes with a brilliant finish. So that one finished up Garton Who 2-17, Cashel Kincormac's 22 points. So again, we don't know who's going to be playing who next until next weekend, but that's a huge win for Garton Who, and Cashel the second favourites for this for this championship, and they were beaten there in their opening round game. So we'll go now to Group 3 of the Premier Intermediate. We're getting through it, and I'll just take another sip of water. When you're talking to yourself for 42 minutes straight, Jesus, this is a long podcast. We'll try and speed things up. Again, sorry, podcast listeners. I could probably mute my mic when I'm doing that. I'll do that the next time. But Group 3 of the Premier Intermediate, another upset here. We'll start with the first game on Saturday. Another upset in this group, I should say. Thurles Sarsfield's beaten Newport. Wouldn't have been an upset. 27 points for Thurles Sarsfield's, 2-14 for Newport. Good to see Conor Floyd back for Newport. He came on. He's been out injured for the last couple of months, so good to see him back, and we wish him well. He came back for Newport, came on as a sub and played much of the game. But 2-14 for Newport, 27 points for Thurles Sarsfields. By all accounts, from what I've heard, it was a comfortable enough win for Thurles Sarsfields, beaten finalists last year. Lost a couple of players to the Thurles Sarsfields main team, Massey McCormack, Liam McCormack. They've kind of graduated up to the next stage. But the other game in that group was Clonakilty 16 points, Borland Douala 2-18. So Borland, the intermediate champions, I was kind of mentioning, you always get a bounce. The intermediate champions, when they come up to Premier Intermediate, always seem to get a bounce, and that's exactly what Borland got. You probably thought they would have needed a good start coming in against Clonakilty. Clonakilty were quarterfinalists, were they, last year in the Premier Intermediate Championship, but Borland got that brilliant start. Mark Downey with 2 goals, the captain of the team. I have my notes written here on that game. Yeah, Mark Downey, great goal after 3 minutes. Yeah, he flicked it over the defender's head coming in on the byline and got it and finished it low past the goalkeeper. And then 2 minutes later, Dara Hickey broke through the line and popped a hand pass off to Mark Downey. He finished it, so it was like 2-2 to a point maybe to Borland Douala straight away. And I haven't watched back this game, but it finished up 2-18 to 16 points. So that's a massive win for Borland Douala, back up into this grade. And all they need now is another win, and they're into a knockout stages. And these teams, when they have momentum, it could just start to roll for them. So massive win there. So that group looks like Borland first, Thurles second, Newport third, and Clonakilty fourth. So it's going to be Newport and Clonakilty next. That's going to be a huge game. And Borland Douala against Thurles Sarsfields next. So that's how Group 3 of the Premier Intermediate Championship is looking. Group 4 then, that's my own Burgess. We had a brilliant win against Killinall on Friday evening, 222 to 219. This was a really, really good game. I would say watch it back. Maybe I'm kind of biased because I was there and you're obviously more caught up in it. But a really good game of hurling. It was 210 to 2-9 at half time. Real physical. Killinall are very big physical team. You could say the same about Burgess. And I have my notes here for this one. It started very good for us. We was about 1-4 to a point up in the early stages. It was a brilliant goal. Stephen Kerwin would have popped a hand pass off to Johnny McQueen, and Johnny McQueen, a lifelong wing back, wouldn't venture that far up the field too often, but he looked very comfortable up there. I actually have JM7 written down, but he broke onto, well, it was Stephen Kerwin got it, broke a tackle, popped a hand pass off, a lovely hand pass kind of over the top. Johnny didn't have to break his stride, caught it, finished it low past Joe Caesar. Brilliant goal. Then I suppose it goes from one end to the other, and a few minutes later, Killinall got their first goal. It was Podge O'Dwyer running through. He kind of broke the line, broke the 21, tried to play it across, and Johnny McQueen was there to cut it out, and he just kind of got his hand to it and cut it out, but he was running towards his own goals, and then the ball kind of broke off him back to Podge O'Dwyer, who had played the ball but continued his run, and it fell back perfectly to him to just knock it into an empty net because Ronan Tucker, I think our goalkeeper, had moved out to try and maybe get a hand pass, but it was just a fortunate goal for Killinall, but a good goal for them to get back into the game. So Burgess, as I was saying, we were kind of 1-4 maybe to a point in the lead, but after that goal went in, Killinall started getting into the game. Tom Stakelum popped a hand pass off to Paddy Feehan for the second goal. Paddy Feehan was unbelievable. Tip football captain for large parts of this year when Stephen O'Brien was injured. He was unreal. His fielding of the ball. It was as I said, it was a real physical game. At one stage, he leathered our goalkeeper into the face, trying to block him. Again, it was a yellow card. And then in the second half, he tried to plough over Keith Neelan. Just it was called for charging, but he's just a big physical lad, and he was unreal throughout the game, fielding the ball. His brother Jimmy, anyone who watches Tip football knows what type of player Jimmy Feehan is. He's just as tough as nails, but he absolutely laid out Micheál Ryan at one stage with a shoulder into the chest, which wasn't great. But he's a sturdy man. He's probably the last player on the field I'd want running into me like that. But in fairness to Micheál, he popped back up and had a good game. But Stephen Kerwin is continuing his good form, and he set up the goal for Johnny McQueen. He scored the second goal for Burgess. So it was 210 to 2-9 at half time, and then the sides went back and forth. Stephen Murray, unbelievable sideline ball right in front of the Burgess dugout. One of the Killinall players was probably giving him a bit of yap before he took the line ball, and when it went over the bar, we went nuts on the sideline. But that was a really, really good game. Killinall were obviously disappointed after the South final, but although they were beaten, I still think they'll take something from that game because it was so physical, and they did hit a few bad wides as well. So Bubbles O'Dwyer scored 3 points. The wrists are just definitely still there. Scored 3 points from play. I think he got a free as well, but he went off injured in the second half. So that's going to be a bit of a worry for them. But we'll see in 2 weeks' time if he's able to play against Sean Tracy. So because the other game in that group was St. Mary's 120, Sean Tracy's 14 points. So I found this one hard to predict because there were so much injuries between the two teams. I wasn't quite sure who was going to have enough. It was 10 points to 7 at half time in favour of St. Mary's, but big moment came 2 minutes into the second half. Michael Murphy, big physical wing forward, got on the ball out in the wing, broke through a couple of tackles, cut inside maybe around the 14-yard line and finished into the back of the net. And that was a big score, 120 to 14 points. St. Mary's ran out winners. So how Group 4 is looking after that opening round is St. Mary's are at the top there. They're going to play ourselves in 2 weeks' time, and then Killinall against Sean Tracy's in 2 weeks' time. So that's how the Premier Intermediate Championship is looking after the first round of games. As I said, the favourites, Upper Church, and the second favourites, Cashel, were beaten. This is just such an unpredictable grade, and it always is, and it's going to continue to be like that for 2024, it looks like. So we'll move on. We'll run down through the intermediate fixtures. We'll start in Group 1, and this was Golden Kilfeacle beat Capawhite 216 to 15 points. Didn't see anything from that game now, but Golden finalists last year. They won the West final this year. They bet Kappa White 2 weeks ago in that West final. They go marching on. Clounty Rossmore, the newcomers to the intermediate grade, last year's Junior A champions, they bet Ballybacon Grange 120 to 113. So that's how Group 1 looks after the first round of games in the intermediate championship. So it's going to be Clounty against Golden next, and then it's going to be Ballybacon Grange against Kappa White. So you would imagine Golden will be favourites to beat Clounty's second team. Jack Leamy seems to be on good form. Ben Curvin there as well, and the O'Connells as well. So plenty of good players there in Golden, and you would expect them to go marching on out of that group, but early doors yet. Group 2 then of the intermediate championship, we had Ballingarry 217, Bursakane 313. So I actually did get to watch back parts of this game there today, and God, like, I predicted this game to be a draw, and it was a 1 point win for Ballingarry, but it very much didn't look like that for large parts of the game. I have it here. Ballingarry are up 112 to 5 points at halftime, so 10 point lead for Ballingarry in the first half. This was down in Dundrum. Ben Ivers with the goal in the first half, and then Dylan Walsh got a penalty in the second half for Ballingarry. They were way out in the lead. They were 12, 13 points up for large periods. I think they were 13 points up with 15 minutes to go. They were 10 points up with 10 minutes to go. But then Oisin Larkin got a quick goal from the 21 on the 46th minute to kind of bring it back. And then he done the same thing in injury time. We'll talk about that goal in a second. But it was Conor Ryan who scored a goal in the 52nd minute. Again, as I mentioned with Sean Ryan from Templederry, there was a couple of one-handed goals this weekend. And Conor Ryan, ball over the top, bounced in front of him, and the goalkeeper was kind of coming out to try and meet him, and it was at an angle, and he just flicked it into the back of the net. So that brought it back maybe to a 6 point game, I think, and then they tagged on a couple of scores, and then Oisin Larkin had a 21-yard free in injury time, and he bounced it off the ground, and it nearly bounced over the bar. It bounced just under the crossbar. It went in just under the crossbar, and that was back to a 1 or 2 point game. And then Dylan Walsh got a couple of big frees late on as well. But, it was Ballingarry, South champions, getting over the line for a finish. But as that scoreline suggests, a 217 to 313, just a 1 point win. But it was very much a lot more going on in that game. So that's another game we can watch back during the week. But Ballingarry do go marching on. Kilsheelan and Kilcash, 21 points to Skeena-Rinke's 115 was the other game in that group. Worth mentioning, Mark Keogh, not in action for Kilsheelan and Kilcash. He was in action over the weekend, though. I actually watched that game last night. Watched so many games of Ireland this weekend, but last night he's over in New York playing for Tip New York, and they bet Clare in the New York Championship semi-final. So I think they're in the final in a week's time maybe, but he scored a goal and maybe 5 or 6 points. He was really good in that game. So Bill Maher from Kilsheelan was really good in that game as well. So I'm sure Kilsheelan would love those two lads back. They're definitely going to get Mark Keogh back. I'm not sure about Bill Maher. I think he's been in there a few years now at this stage. But that was a really good win for Tip New York, and a load of local lads on that team. Good friends of mine, Colin O'Brien and Brian Seymour from the Silvermines, were playing in that game. And then AJ Willis and Ron Mulrooney from Portroe playing in that game as well. So loads of Tipperary hurlers playing over there for Tip New York. They're going into the final over in New York. But for Group 2 of the County Intermediate Championship, Kilsheelan and Ballingarry take up the top 2 spots. They'll play each other. They played each other in the South Final not too long ago. So they're going to be playing each other again in 2 weeks' time. And then Bursakane against Skeena-Rinke is the other game in that group in 2 weeks' time. So we'll move on now to Group 3 of the Intermediate Championship. Massive win here for Shannon Rovers in this group. This was on Sunday evening, 23 points to 21. They bet Arvale Rovers. As I've said, Shannon Rovers kind of hanging on at this grade the last couple of weeks, but they'll be sitting pretty here on this Sunday evening, looking at themselves in first place in Group 3. And the Drummond-Inch Portroe draw is good for Shannon Rovers, I suppose, because they can see now if they can get another win, they'll be pretty much guaranteed, I think, a spot in the knockout stages. So that's how this season goes. Like, they were well beaten against Moneygall in the North Championship, but now after that result, they might fancy trying to get through, but they'll be delighted with just beating Arvale Rovers, because that gives them a massive boost now in terms of avoiding relegation. And if we look at it, Arvale Rovers were winning by a point going into injury time, but Shannon Rovers finished really strong in Newport, and they got the last couple of scores to win that game, 23 points to 21. So it's back to the drawing board for Arvale Rovers. The other game in that group, Drummond 317, Portroe 26 points. So I think I predicted Port to win this game, obviously coming down from the Premier Intermediate last year. And Drummond have been a really good team at this grade. Their second team, of course, but 317 to 26 points. This game, I don't think was non-clubber. We were hurling ourselves at the same time, so I don't know much about this game. I did see that John Sheedy scored, was it 18 or 19 points? So that is some scoring for Johnny Sheedy. But Portroe, we don't know who they're going to play next because of the draw. So it's going to be Shannon Rovers against either Port or Drummond, and then Arvale Rovers against either Port or Drummond as well. So that's how Group 3 looks at the minute in the Intermediate Championship. And finally, we'll get down to Group 4, and this was Moneygall's group. And two massive wins, real lopsided group this is looking like. Moneygall 224 to Carrickdavin 17 points. Shawnee Kennelly with 2 goals in that game. He was really good. Also a strange moment in that game. In about 20 minutes, the game was kind of stopped for about 7, 8, maybe 10 minutes or so. There was a medical emergency in the sideline in the stands. So whoever that was, hopefully they're all right. But the game was stopped in that first half, and Shawnee Kennelly got that first goal in the first 5 minutes or so. Then he got the second goal in the last 2 minutes of the game. But Moneygall were always kind of well ahead in that one, and 224 to 17 points would suggest that as well. Upperchurch Strumban, their second team against Knockavilla Doneski Kickham's 5-18 for Knockavilla. I think Jamie Duncan got a couple of goals. Adam Daly from the Tipperary 20s got a goal as well. And for Upperchurch, it's going to be tough for them for their second team, and they were well beaten there, 5-18 3-8. So they'll play Carrickdavins next, and Knockavilla will play Moneygall next. But you would imagine, it's early doors yet, but that's how that group will end up in terms of Moneygall and Knockavilla going through. So that Carrickdavins and Upperchurch game will be a big one in 2 weeks' time. So that's pretty much how things ended up after that first round. I'll see if I have any other notes written down. I think that's pretty much it. But we'll run down through my predictions for the other games in the Premier Intermediate. I predicted Upperchurch to win, and they were beaten. So I predicted Burgess to win, and they won. I predicted Ballina to beat the Mines. That happened. Predicted Cashel to beat Girton Who. That didn't happen. Girton Who won that game. I predicted Sarsfields to beat Newport. That happened. Predicted Clonakilty to beat Boherlahan, but Boherlahan with an 8-point victory there. I predicted a draw in St Mary's and Sean Tracy's just because I didn't really know who was going to be playing, but St Mary's with a comprehensive win there. So what did we go in the Premier Intermediate? We got 2 from 3, 3 from 5, 3 out of 7. So not hectic, but hopefully these will get more accurate as we go on. What are we up to? 57 minutes. This is a long podcast. Then in the Intermediate Championship, we predicted Port to win. That was a draw, so close one there. We predicted a draw in the Ballingarry Kane game. That was a 1-point game. So although these were both wrong predictions, they were pretty close. Predicted Moneygall to win. That happened. Predicted Kilsheelan to win. That happened. Predicted Golden to win. That happened. I predicted Arvale Rovers to beat Shannon Rovers. They were winning in injury time, as we were saying, but in fairness to Daryl Tucker's men, fair play to a Burgess man, Daryl Tucker, who's involved with Shannon Rovers. They got over the line in injury time. So, and then we predicted Clounty Rossmore and Ballybacon to be a draw. Clounty Rossmore won that game, and Upperchurch Strumban, we predicted Knockavilla to win, and they did. So I'd actually done well in the intermediate grade. What did we get? We got 1, we got 2, 3, 4. We got 4 of 8 right, and then 2 of the results we didn't get right were only 1-point games. So did pretty well there, you'd have to say. But 9 from 23 for the opening round weekend. Not hectic on my part, but hopefully that will improve. So that's pretty much it. I did mention the Camogie, the Tip Camogies, if anyone saw that game. 6th semi-final loss for them in the last 7 years. 2 years in a row they've lost the semi-final by a point. Devastating stuff, it has to be said. And I just thought when I was there, they should have pushed Karen Kendi up the field. I've such good faith in Karen Kendi. I think she could win games for Tip on her own if she's given ball. And she was just kind of operating as a sweeper. And I just feel like we've other players on the team that could have operated in that role and maybe pushed Karen up. But you'd be sickened for the team and management, because the game was there for them. It was a real cagey game, real tense, and Emer McGrath scored a great goal, and she was on form. Caught Devan done well when she came on. Corinne Blair had the game of her life. It felt like, but it was just, I suppose, before halftime and after halftime, Niamh Mallon got a few scores there, and that was ultimately not ultimately the difference, but that kept Galway in it, and they pushed on in the last few minutes. Carrie Dolan hit a big free as well, considering she'd missed one to draw the National League final a couple of weeks ago. But it's the end of the road for the Tip senior camogie team, and hopefully, I was talking to one of the players coming off, and I was like, I believe there's a good end to this story for this Tipperary senior camogie team, and by God, do they deserve it? But sport doesn't always work in fairy tales like that, but hopefully this one will be a fairy tale ending for this Tip team, because, as I said, 6 semi-final losses in 7 years, haven't been to a final in 18 years. So hopefully they can push on. They've a really good minor team coming through who won the All Ireland Championship. So hopefully those players can progress on to the next level. But in terms of a county championship roundup, that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're listening on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll try and keep building this. And if you're on Spotify, give us a follow if you're not already. Retweet us on Twitter or whatever if you can. And spread the good word of Tipperary hurling. We are very lucky in Tip. We have really good county championships. If seeing clips of Ballygunner over the weekend down in Waterford winning 54 games in a row, like, that would just not be enjoyable to be covering those games. It would feel like a foregone conclusion. But I love the fact that I was only able to predict 9 out of the 23 games correctly, because it's a really unpredictable championship we have in Tipperary, and long may that continue. In terms of who's going to win this county championship, I don't think the answer is any way clear, even in the 3 divisions. I don't think the answer is any way clear after round 1. The more you know, the more you don't know, really. So it's really open championship. We'll look forward to 2 weeks' time. We'll give a quick preview of the games maybe in Wednesday week or so, as we look forward to that. But as I said, if you've enjoyed it, give us a like, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I definitely enjoyed the weekend of GAA action in Tipperary, and what an opening weekend it was. Let's hope for something similar in 2 weeks' time. But until the preview podcast in about 10 days or so, it's bye for now.